Hey there. Thanks for stopping by Cheating Tales Lab. We've got a thrilling story for you today, and we hope you love it. So sit tight and let's get into the story. Nate's fingers danced delicately over the molten glass, coaxing it into elegant curves and spirals. The heat from the furnace warmed his face as he focused intently on his craft. He was in his element here, in the quiet sanctuary of his home studio. But even as he shaped beauty from chaos, an uneasy feeling gnawed at the edges of his concentration. Something was off. The hairs on the back of his neck prickled, that old instinct warning him that all was not right in his world. He heard the faint murmur of Evelyn's voice from the other room. His wife was on another of her increasingly frequent phone calls. Work, she always said. Important client matters that couldn't wait. Nate frowned slightly as he put the finishing touches on his latest piece. He couldn't put his finger on it, but Evelyn's behavior had been different lately. More secretive, more distracted. Setting down his tools, he moved closer to the partially open door, straining to hear. "I can't wait to see you again, Ryan," Evelyn was saying, her voice low and intimate. "Yes, I know we have to be careful. Nate doesn't suspect a thing." Nate froze, his blood turning to ice in his veins. Ryan? Who the hell was Ryan? And why did Evelyn sound like... No, it couldn't be. Evelyn wouldn't. But even as he tried to rationalize it away, that damned instinct was screaming at him. He knew. Deep down he knew. Moving silently, Nate made his way to their shared tablet. His hand shook slightly as he unlocked it. A quick search of her messages revealed the ugly truth in stark black and white. Intimate exchanges, declarations of passion, plans for clandestine meetings. His wife was having an affair. Nate set the tablet down carefully, his mind reeling. He wanted to confront her immediately, to rage and scream and demand answers. But the cooler, more calculating part of his brain held him back. He needed more information, more evidence. Moving on autopilot, he retrieved the hidden camera he kept for security purposes. Within minutes, it was installed in an inconspicuous corner of the studio, its lens trained on Evelyn's favorite spot for her work calls. Now all he had to do was wait. The next few days were torture. Nate went through the motions of normalcy, all while a storm of betrayal and fury churned inside him. He threw himself into his work, channeling his turmoil into ever more intricate and fragile creations. Finally, his patience was rewarded. The camera captured one of Evelyn's video calls in crystal clear detail. Nate's hands clenched into fists as he watched his wife's coy smiles and flirtatious gestures, all directed at the handsome stranger on the screen. But it was the content of their conversation that truly drove the knife home. "I've got Nate working on that new series you commissioned," Evelyn was saying. "He has no idea you're the buyer, of course. God, Ryan, you're so brilliant. Using my husband's talent to increase the value of your collection. It's deliciously wicked." The man, Ryan, chuckled. "What can I say? I have expensive tastes, in art and in women." Nate had seen enough. He shut off the feed, his mind whirling. So not only was Evelyn cheating on him, but she was conspiring with her lover to manipulate Nate's career for their own gain. He needed to know more about this Ryan character. A quick internet search revealed that Ryan Blackwood was a prominent figure in the art world, a wealthy collector with a reputation for ruthlessness in business dealings. Nate's lip curled in disgust. Of course Evelyn would be drawn to someone like that. Status and money had always been weaknesses of hers. He was so lost in his thoughts that he almost missed Evelyn's return. She breezed into the studio, all smiles and false cheer. "How's the new piece coming along, darling?" she asked, peering at his latest creation. Nate struggled to keep his voice neutral. "Fine, just fine." Evelyn frowned slightly, picking up on his tension. "Is everything all right?" For a moment, Nate was tempted to confront her then and there, to lay out all the evidence of her betrayal and watch her squirm. But no, he wasn't ready. Not yet. Just stress about deadlines, he lied smoothly. Nothing to worry about. Evelyn's shoulders relaxed, clearly relieved. Well, don't work too hard. I'm heading out for a bit, meeting with a potential new client. Nate's jaw clenched. He knew exactly where and with whom she was really going, but he forced a smile. Have a good time. As soon as she was gone, Nate's calm facade crumbled. He paced the studio like a caged animal, mind racing. What was he going to do? How could he have been so blind? One thing was certain: he couldn't let this stand. Evelyn and her lover thought they could play him for a fool, use his talent and reputation for their own gain, while making a mockery of his marriage. Well, they were about to learn just how dangerous it was to underestimate Nate Buford. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying over the keys as he composed a message to his old friend Carter. If anyone could dig up dirt on Ryan Blackwood, it was him. As he hit send, a smile played across Nate's face. Let Evelyn and Ryan enjoy their little game for now. Soon enough, he'd show them exactly who they were dealing with. The pieces were in motion. Now all Nate had to do was wait for the right moment to strike. Evelyn's heart raced as she drove to the upscale hotel where she was meeting Ryan. The thrill of their forbidden romance still sent shivers down her spine, even after months of sneaking around. She knew what she was doing was wrong, knew the pain it would cause Nate if he ever found out, but she couldn't seem to help herself. Ryan made her feel alive in a way she hadn't in years. As she parked and made her way inside, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered warnings. Nate had seemed off lately, more distant, almost suspicious, but she shook off the doubts. Nate was a Boy Scout through and through, honest to a fault. He'd never dream of snooping or invading her privacy. Their marriage might have grown stale, but his loyalty was unwavering. The thought sent a pang of guilt through her, but it vanished as soon as she laid eyes on Ryan. He was waiting for her in the lobby, looking devastatingly handsome in a tailored suit. "There's my girl," he said with a rakish grin, pulling her in for a passionate kiss. Evelyn melted against him, all thoughts of Nate fleeing her mind. This was where she belonged, in the arms of a man who truly appreciated her. As they made their way up to the room, Ryan filled her in on his latest schemes. "That new series Nate's working on, it's going to make us both very rich," he said, eyes gleaming. "I've already lined up some major buyers. Once word gets out that the Nathan Buford created these pieces for my personal collection, the value will skyrocket." Evelyn's brow furrowed slightly. "You don't think anyone will get suspicious?" Nate asking questions about the mysterious buyer. Ryan waved a hand dismissively. "Please, your husband is an artist, not a businessman. He has no idea how the game is really played. As long as the check's clear, he'll be happy as a clam." Evelyn nodded, pushing down a twinge of discomfort. Ryan was right, of course. Nate was hopelessly naive when it came to the cutthroat world of high-end art dealing. It was one of the reasons she'd been so easily swayed by Ryan's charms. Still, as Ryan pulled her onto the bed, a nagging doubt lingered in the back of her mind. Was she really prepared to betray Nate so completely? To use his talent and trust against him? But then Ryan's lips were on hers, his hands roaming her body, and all such thoughts fled. She gave herself over to passion, determined to enjoy every stolen moment while she could. Nate stared at the printout spread across his desk, his expression grim. The results of Carter's investigation into Ryan Blackwood painted an ugly picture indeed. Multiple affairs with artist spouses, manipulation of the art market through insider trading, and artificially inflated values. Even hints of outright fraud and money laundering. It seemed Evelyn had gotten herself mixed up with a real piece of work. Part of Nate wanted to confront her immediately, to shake her and demand how she could be so blind. But the cooler, more strategic part of his brain held him back. He needed irrefutable proof. Something that would leave Evelyn no room for denial or excuses. And more importantly, something that would bring Ryan Blackwood's house of cards tumbling down around him. A plan began to form in Nate's mind. It was risky, potentially even dangerous, but he was past the point of caution now. He picked up his phone, dialing a number he'd committed to memory. "Carter? It's me. I need one more favor. Ryan Blackwood surveyed his private gallery with satisfaction. Row upon row of priceless artworks, each one carefully acquired and cultivated to maximize its value. And soon, he'd have an entire series of Nathan Buford originals to add to his collection. The thought brought a smug smile to his face. Poor, naive Nate had no idea he was creating the very pieces that would cement Ryan's status as the preeminent collector of his generation. The security system chimed, alerting him to a visitor. Ryan frowned. He wasn't expecting anyone this evening. He pulled up the camera feed on his tablet, eyebrows rising in surprise when he saw who was waiting at the gate. Well, it seemed the lamb had decided to walk right into the lion's den. Ryan buzzed Nate in, a predatory gleam in his eye. This should be interesting. Nate's hands were clenched into fists at his sides as he strode into Ryan's opulent gallery. Every instinct screamed at him to lash out, to make this smug bastard pay for his betrayal. But he forced himself to remain calm. He needed answers first. Ryan was waiting for him, lounging against a marble pedestal with feigned nonchalance. Nathan Buford, as I live and breathe. To what do I owe the pleasure? Nate's jaw clenched. Cut the crap, Blackwood. I know all about you and Evelyn, and your little scheme to manipulate my work. For a moment, surprise flashed across Ryan's face, but it was quickly replaced by a cold smirk. Well, it seems the artist has more spine than I gave him credit for. Tell me, Nathan, how does it feel to know you've been nothing but a pawn in our little game? Rage boiled up inside Nate, threatening to overwhelm him, but he fought it back. Why, he ground out. Why go to all this trouble? You're already wealthy beyond measure. What could you possibly gain from all this? Ryan's laugh was bitter and mocking. Oh, you simple fool. You really don't understand how this world works, do you? It's not about the money. It's about power, control. Watching self-righteous Boy Scouts like you dance to my tune without even realizing it. He gestured expansively at the surrounding artworks. Every piece in this room represents a conquest, a life manipulated, a reputation exploited. And now, thanks to your charming wife, I'll have an entire series of Nathan Buford originals to add to my collection. Your magnum opus, created at my behest without you even knowing it. It's delicious, really. Nate's vision went red. Before he even realized what he was doing, he had Ryan by the collar, slamming him against the wall. You arrogant piece of... But Ryan just laughed, seemingly unfazed by Nate's display of aggression. Careful now, Nathan. You wouldn't want to do anything rash. After all, I have some very powerful friends. It would be a shame if your budding career were to suddenly stall. Nate released him, taking a step back. Is that a threat? Ryan straightened his jacket, that infuriating smirk still firmly in place. Consider it a friendly warning. You're playing in the big leagues now, Nathan. The rules are different here. So, why don't we come to an arrangement? You keep creating those lovely pieces for me. I'll make you obscenely wealthy, and we can even work out a little schedule for sharing Evelyn's charms. What do you say? For a long moment, Nate said nothing. Then, with deliberate calm, he turned and picked up one of the delicate glass sculptures adorning a nearby pedestal. You know, he said conversationally, the thing about glass is how fragile it can be. One wrong move. He let the sculpture slip from his fingers, watching with satisfaction as it shattered on the marble floor. Oops. Ryan's face contorted with rage. You idiot. Do you have any idea how much that piece was worth? Nate met his gaze evenly. Not nearly as much as your reputation will be when I'm done with you. With that, he turned and strode out of the gallery, leaving a sputtering Ryan in his wake. As he made his way down the winding driveway, Nate caught a glimpse of movement in one of the upstairs windows. A woman's face, watching the scene unfold with an unreadable expression. Ryan's wife? Nate filed the information away for later. He had a feeling it might prove useful. For now, though, he had preparations to make. The final act of this little drama was about to begin, and Nate intended to be the one writing the ending. Evelyn's phone buzzed insistently, jolting her from a fitful sleep. She fumbled for it in the darkness, squinting at the bright screen. The clock read 2:37 a.m. An unknown number flashed on the display. "Hello?" she answered groggily. "Is this Evelyn Buford?" A man's voice, tense and official sounding. "Yes. Who is this?" "This is Officer Ramirez from the Metro PD. I'm calling about Ryan Blackwood. There's been an incident. He's been taken to St. Mary's Hospital." "It's serious, ma'am. You were listed as his emergency contact." Evelyn's blood ran cold. "What happened? Is he—" "I can't give details over the phone, ma'am. You should get to the hospital as soon as possible." The line went dead. Evelyn sat frozen for a moment, her mind reeling. Then she sprang into action, throwing on clothes haphazardly. Nate stirred beside her. "Eh? What's going on?" She hesitated. "Work emergency," she lied smoothly. "Go back to sleep. I'll explain in the morning." As she drove through the quiet streets, her hands shook on the steering wheel. What the hell had happened? And why was she Ryan's emergency contact? That idiot. If he'd gotten them exposed. The emergency room was a flurry of activity. Evelyn approached the desk, her heart pounding. "I'm here about Ryan Blackwood. I got a call." The nurse's expression turned grave. "Are you family?" "I'm a close friend. Please, what's happened?" Before the nurse could answer, a tall woman in a crisp suit approached. "Mrs. Buford? I am Detective Reyes. Can we talk privately?" Evelyn's stomach dropped. A detective? This was bad. Very bad. She followed Detective Reyes to a quiet corner, her mind racing. She had to be careful here. Very careful. "Mrs. Buford, I understand you were close with Mr. Blackwood?" Evelyn swallowed hard. "We're colleagues. He's commissioned several pieces from my husband's studio." "What's happened to Ryan?" Detective Reyes's gaze was piercing. "I'm afraid Mr. Blackwood is dead, ma'am. He was found in his home studio about an hour ago. There are suspicious circumstances." The world tilted sideways. Evelyn gripped the wall for support. "Dead? But how?" "That's what we're trying to determine. Mrs. Buford, when was the last time you saw or spoke to Mr. Blackwood?" Evelyn's mind raced. She had to be so careful now. I'm not sure. A few days ago, maybe, at a gallery opening." Detective Reyes's eyes narrowed slightly. "I see. And your husband, when did he last have contact with Mr. Blackwood?" A chill ran down Evelyn's spine. "I'm not sure," she said slowly. "Nate handles the creative side. I deal more with the business end of things." "Why do you ask?" The detective's expression gave nothing away. "Just establishing a timeline, Mrs. Buford. We'll need to speak with your husband as well. In the meantime, is there anything else you can tell me about Mr. Blackwood? Any enemies? Anyone who might wish him harm?" Evelyn hesitated. This was her chance. A way to distance herself from the whole sordid mess. And if suspicion fell on Nate, well, he had been acting strangely lately. Who knew what he might have done in a fit of jealous rage? I'm not sure if it's relevant," she began hesitantly. "But Nate and Ryan did have a disagreement recently, over some commissioned pieces. It got rather heated." Detective Reyes leaned forward slightly. "Go on." Nate felt Ryan was being too demanding, trying to rush the creative process. And Ryan, well, he can be quite forceful when he wants something. I mean, he could be. Evelyn's voice broke convincingly. "I never thought it would come to this, though." Surely Nate wouldn't. She let the implication hang in the air. Detective Reyes nodded. "Thank you, Mrs. Buford. We'll be in touch. Please don't leave town." As the detective walked away, Evelyn sagged against the wall. What had she done? But no, it was necessary. She had to protect herself. Nate would understand. He'd forgive her eventually. Wouldn't he? Nate was rudely awakened by a pounding on the front door. Bleary-eyed, he stumbled downstairs, noting Evelyn's continued absence with a mixture of anger and resignation. He opened the door to find two grim-faced police officers on his doorstep. "Nathan Buford?" "Yes, I'm Detective Reyes. We need you to come down to the station to answer some questions about Ryan Blackwood." Nate's stomach clenched. "What's this about?" "Mr. Blackwood was found dead in his home earlier this evening. We're investigating the circumstances." "Dead? Ryan was dead?" Nate's mind reeled. "I don't understand. What does this have to do with me?" Detective Reyes' expression hardened. "That's what we're hoping to find out, Mr. Buford. Now, are you going to come with us voluntarily, or do we need to make this official?" Nate's lawyer's voice echoed in his head. Never talk to the police without representation. But refusing would only make him look guilty. Of what? He wasn't sure, but clearly he was a suspect in whatever had happened. "Let me get dressed," he said finally. "I'll come with you." The ride to the police station was tense and silent. Nate's mind raced. Ryan was dead, murdered, most likely, given the police involvement, and they thought he had something to do with it. It was absurd. Sure, he'd confronted Ryan, smashed that sculpture, but murder? He wasn't capable of that. Was he? At the station, they led him to a small, windowless room. Detective Reyes sat across from him, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Buford, can you tell me about your relationship with Ryan Blackwood?" Nate chose his words carefully. "He was a client. He commissioned several pieces from my studio." "Just a client? Nothing more personal?" Nate's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying, Detective?" "We have reason to believe your relationship with Mr. Blackwood was more complicated than that. Witnesses place you at his home earlier this evening, engaged in what appeared to be a heated argument. Want to tell me what that was about?" "Shit, he should have known there would be security cameras." "Stupid, stupid, stupid. I'd like to speak with my lawyer now," Nate said firmly. Detective Reyes leaned back, a small, satisfied smile playing at her lips. "Of course, but I should warn you, Mr. Buford. We have physical evidence placing you at the scene. We have witnesses to your argument, and we have a statement from your wife about your volatile temper where Mr. Blackwood was concerned." Nate's blood ran cold. Evelyn had spoken to them? What the hell had she told them? "I'm not saying another word without my lawyer present," he repeated. Detective Reyes nodded. "As you wish. Nathan Buford, you're under arrest for the murder of Ryan Blackwood. You have the right to remain silent." As the detective read him his rights, Nate's mind spun. This couldn't be happening. He was innocent, but the evidence and Evelyn's betrayal. He had a sinking feeling that things were about to get much, much worse. Carter rubbed his eyes, staring at the computer screen with growing frustration. He'd been at this for hours, combing through every scrap of information he could find on Ryan Blackwood and the circumstances surrounding his death. The ping of an incoming message jolted him from his thoughts. It was from Nate, sent through the secure channel they'd set up for just this purpose. "Carter, I need your help. I've been arrested for Ryan's murder. I'm innocent, but the evidence looks bad. Can you dig deeper? Especially into Evelyn's movements that night, and Ryan's wife, Olivia. I saw her watching when I confronted Ryan. Something fell off. Be careful. Ryan had powerful connections." Carter's jaw clenched. He'd warned Nate about getting mixed up with people like Blackwood. The art world was a cesspool of corruption and manipulation. But Nate, with his damn Boy Scout ethics, had thought he could navigate it unscathed. Well, no use crying over spilled milk now. Time to get to work. He cracked his knuckles and dove back into his research with renewed vigor. Financial records, phone logs, social media accounts. Anything that might shed light on the tangled web of relationships surrounding Ryan Blackwood. A pattern began to emerge. Ryan's acquisitions often followed a similar pattern. He'd ingratiate himself with up-and-coming artists, seducing their spouses or partners. Then he'd use that leverage to manipulate both the artists and the market, driving up prices and consolidating his power in the art world. It was clever, Carter had to admit, Ruthless but clever, he dug deeper into Evelyn's background. On the surface, she seemed clean, but there were discrepancies. Small ones, easily overlooked, unexplained deposits in overseas accounts, frequent business trips that didn't quite add up. Carter's eyes narrowed. It seemed Nate's wife was more than just a passive participant in Ryan's schemes. But something still didn't fit. If Evelyn was so deeply involved with Ryan, why point suspicion at Nate? Unless... Carter sat up straighter, a new theory forming. What if Evelyn was trying to cover her own tracks? Frame Nate to divert attention from her own involvement? He needed to talk to her. Carefully, of course. If she was behind this, she was clearly dangerous. But a well-placed question or two might reveal volumes. Carter picked up his phone, dialing Evelyn's number. Time to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. Evelyn paced her living room, anxiety clawing at her insides. Everything was falling apart. Nate arrested, Ryan dead, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. The doorbell rang, startling her. She approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. A man she didn't recognize stood on the porch, his stance casual but alert. "Mrs. Buford?" he called through the door. "I'm Carter, a friend of Nate's. I was hoping we could talk." Evelyn's heart raced. One of Nate's friends? This could be bad. Very bad. But refusing to speak to him would only raise more suspicions. She opened the door, plastering on a worried smile. "Of course. Please come in. Any friend of Nate's." Carter stepped inside, his sharp eyes taking in every detail of the house. "Thank you, Mrs. Buford. I won't take up much of your time. I just had a few questions about the night Ryan Blackwood died." Evelyn's smile faltered slightly. "I've already spoken to the police. I'm not sure what else I can add." Carter's gaze was penetrating. Sometimes a fresh perspective can reveal new insights. "For instance, I couldn't help but notice some discrepancies in your financial records from the past few months." The blood drained from Evelyn's face. How did he know about that? Who was this man? "I'm not sure what you're implying," she said stiffly, "but I think you should leave. Now." Carter held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Of course. I apologize if I've upset you. Just one more question, if I may. The night Ryan died, where were you between 9 p.m. and midnight?" Evelyn's mind raced. She'd told the police she was home all evening. But if this man had access to her financial records, what else did he know? "I was out," she said finally, "running errands. I needed to clear my head after everything that happened with Nate and Ryan." Carter nodded thoughtfully. "I see. Well, thank you for your time, Mrs. Buford. I'm sure we'll be speaking again soon." As he left, Evelyn sagged against the door. This was bad. Very, very bad. She needed to do something, and fast, before everything she'd worked for came crashing down around her. Olivia Blackwood stood at the window of her palatial home, a glass of wine clutched in her trembling hand. The grounds were crawling with police, combing every inch for evidence of her husband's murder. Ex-husband, she reminded herself bitterly. The divorce papers had been drawn up weeks ago. All that was left was to serve the bastard. Now she'd never get the chance. A soft knock at the door pulled her from her brooding. "Mrs. Blackwood, there's a man here to see you. Says he's a private investigator working for Nathan Buford." Olivia's eyebrows rose. Nathan Buford, the artist whose wife Ryan had been screwing. This could be interesting. "Send him in," she said, straightening her posture and smoothing her features into a mask of grieving widow. The man who entered was nondescript, but his eyes were sharp and assessing. "Mrs. Blackwood, I'm Carter. I'm looking into the circumstances surrounding your husband's death on behalf of Nathan Buford." Olivia's lip curled slightly. "You mean the man accused of murdering my husband? Bold move, sending an investigator to question me." Carter's expression remained neutral. "Mr. Buford maintains his innocence. I'm simply trying to uncover the truth, wherever it may lead." I was hoping you might be able to provide some insight into your husband's business practices. Olivia laughed bitterly. Business practices? Is that what we're calling it now? Ryan's business was destroying lives and manipulating people. He was a monster. She saw the glint of interest in Carter's eyes and cursed inwardly. She'd said too much. The wine was making her sloppy. That's an interesting perspective, Mrs. Blackwood. Can you elaborate? Olivia turned away, staring out the window again. I think you should leave now. I have funeral arrangements to make. But Carter pressed on. One more question, if I may. The security footage from the night of your husband's death shows an argument between the two of you. Can you tell me what that was about? Olivia froze. How did he know about that? The footage should have been erased. I don't know what you're talking about, she said coldly. Now get out before I call security. As Carter left, Olivia's mind raced. This was bad. If that footage had survived, she needed to act fast, before everything she'd done was exposed. Little did she know, her actions that night were about to come back to haunt her in ways she could never have imagined. The courtroom was packed as Nate's lawyer presented the new evidence. Security footage showing Olivia Blackwood entering Ryan's studio shortly after Nate's confrontation. Financial records revealing a pattern of embezzlement and fraud that Ryan had been on the verge of discovering. And most damning of all, traces of the poison used to kill Ryan found on a pair of gloves in Olivia's car. As the judge ordered Nate's release and the investigation reopened, Evelyn sat in the back of the courtroom, her face pale. This changed everything. With Nate exonerated, attention would inevitably turn to her own involvement in Ryan's schemes. She watched as Nate was embraced by his supporters, his face a mixture of relief and determination. Their eyes met briefly across the crowded room. The coldness in his gaze sent a chill down her spine. Evelyn slipped out of the courtroom, her mind racing. She needed to disappear. Fast, before the house of cards she'd so carefully constructed came tumbling down around her. But as she hurried toward the exit, a hand gripped her arm. She turned to find herself face to face with Detective Reyes. Going somewhere, Mrs. Buford? I thank you, and I need to have another chat. Evelyn's heart sank. She had a feeling things were about to get much worse. Carter's fingers flew over the keyboard. His eyes narrowed in concentration. He'd been combing through the security footage from Ryan's mansion for hours, looking for any clue that might exonerate Nate. And now, finally, he had something. The grainy video showed Olivia Blackwood entering Ryan's studio shortly after Nate's confrontation. Her body language was tense, agitated, and in her hand, Carter leaned closer to the screen, a smile playing at his lips. Bingo! He picked up his phone, dialing Nate's lawyer. I've got something. You're going to want to see this. Olivia Blackwood sat in the stark interrogation room, her designer clothes rumpled, her normally immaculate makeup smeared. She looked a far cry from the polished socialite who had ruled the art world alongside her husband. Detective Reyes entered, a file tucked under her arm. Mrs. Blackwood, we have some new evidence we'd like to discuss with you. Olivia's eyes darted nervously. I've already told you everything I know. Have you? Reyes laid out a series of photos on the table. Security camera stills showing Olivia entering Ryan's studio. Close-ups of the glass in her hand. Care to explain this? Olivia's face drained of color. I don't. We found traces of the poison used to kill your husband on a pair of gloves in your car. Reyes continued relentlessly. The same poison that was in that glass you're carrying in these photos. Olivia's composure cracked. You don't understand, she whispered. Ryan, he was a monster. You have no idea what he was capable of. So you killed him? Olivia's laugh was bitter, bordering on hysterical. I saw an opportunity, and I took it. That other man, the artist, I saw him storm out after their fight. I knew Ryan would be angry, distracted, vulnerable. She leaned forward, her eyes wild. Do you know what it's like to be married to a man like that? To watch him destroy lives, manipulate people, all for his own gain? I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't let him hurt anyone else. Reyes's expression remained impassive. Olivia Blackwood, you're under arrest for the murder of Ryan Blackwood. You have the right to remain silent. As Reyes read her rights, Olivia sagged in her chair. It was over. All of it. And in a twisted way, she felt something she hadn't in years. Relief. Nate stood outside the courtroom, his face a mask of grim satisfaction as he watched Olivia being led away in handcuffs. It was over. He was free. A commotion down the hall caught his attention. Evelyn was being escorted out by two officers, her face pale and drawn. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Nate saw fear there, and something else. Regret? He turned away. Whatever Evelyn was feeling, it was too little, too late. Carter appeared at his side. You okay, man? Nate nodded slowly. Yeah, I think I am. Thanks for everything, Carter. I owe you. Carter clapped him on the shoulder. Just glad we got to the truth. So, what now? Nate's jaw set in determination. Now I rebuild. And make sure nothing like this ever happens to anyone else in this godforsaken industry. As they walked out of the courthouse, Nate's mind was already racing with plans. He had a long road ahead, but for the first time in months, he felt something like hope. The divorce proceedings were mercifully quick. Nate's lawyer presented irrefutable evidence of Evelyn's affair and her attempts to frame Nate for Ryan's murder. The judge's ruling was swift and decisive. As Nate signed the final papers, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It was done. He was free. But he wasn't finished yet. Not by a long shot. Back in his studio, Nate stared at the blank canvas before him. His hands itched to create, to channel all the pain and betrayal of the past months into something beautiful and terrible. He picked up a delicate glass rod, feeling its familiar weight in his hand. As he began to work, shaping and molding the molten glass, a new series began to take form. He would call it Betrayal's Reflections, a chronicle of deceit, manipulation, and ultimately redemption. Each piece would tell a part of the story. The initial trust, shattered like spun sugar. The web of lies, intricate and deadly as a spider's silk. And finally, the phoenix rising from the ashes, stronger and more brilliant than before. Nate worked tirelessly, pouring every ounce of emotion into his creations. Days blurred into weeks as the series took shape, and as he worked, word began to spread. The art world buzzed with rumors of Nathan Buford's triumphant return, a comeback story for the ages. Gallery owners clamored for a chance to showcase his new work. Critics penned breathless previews, sight unseen. But Nate ignored it all. He had one goal in mind, and he wouldn't rest until it was achieved. The night of the gallery opening, Nate stood before the assembled crowd, his heart pounding. This was it, the moment of truth. He cleared his throat and the room fell silent. Thank you all for coming tonight, he began. This series, Betrayal's Reflections, is more than just art. It's a story, my story, and the story of countless others who have been manipulated and betrayed by the very people they trusted most. A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. Nate pressed on. For too long, the art world has been a breeding ground for corruption and deceit. We've allowed the Ryan Blackwoods of the world to run roughshod over artists, to use us for their own gain. Well, I'm here to say no more. He gestured to the sculptures around him. Each of these pieces represents a chapter in my journey, from blind trust to bitter betrayal to, ultimately, redemption. But more than that, they represent a call to action. Nate's voice grew stronger, more passionate. It's time for us to take back our industry, to demand transparency and ethical practices, to support and protect young artists from the predators who would exploit them. He saw a few uncomfortable shifts in the crowd. Good. Let them squirm. I stand before you today not just as an artist, but as a survivor. And I'm asking all of you to join me in creating a better, more honest art world. One where talent and integrity are valued above all else. As Nate finished his speech, the room erupted in applause. He saw tears in some eyes, fierce determination in others, and in the back, partially hidden behind a pillar, he caught a glimpse of a familiar face. Evelyn, her expression unreadable as she watched him from afar. Nate turned away. He had said his piece. Now it was time to let his art speak for itself. The months that followed were a whirlwind. Betrayal's reflections became the talk of the art world, praised for its raw emotion and technical brilliance. Nate found himself inundated with invitations to shows and exhibitions around the globe. His name was on everyone's lips. His story held up as an inspiration to artists everywhere. But it was more than just personal success. Nate's call for reform had struck a chord. He began receiving messages from other artists, sharing their own stories of exploitation and manipulation. It sparked an idea, a way to truly make a difference. Nate reached out to his contacts in the industry, proposing a mentorship program for young artists, a way to guide them through the pitfalls of the art world, to teach them how to protect themselves and their work. The response was overwhelming. Artists, gallery owners, even a few reformed Ryan Blackwood types eagerly signed on to help. Within months, the program was up and running. Nate threw himself into it with the same passion he brought to his art. He conducted workshops, arranged apprenticeships, and provided a sympathetic ear to those who needed it. For the first time in years, he felt truly fulfilled, not just as an artist, but as a person. It was a year to the day since the gallery opening that had changed everything. Nate stood at the podium, surveying the crowd gathered for the mentorship program's first annual gala. So much had changed. The art world was slowly but surely evolving. Greater transparency in dealings, stricter ethical guidelines, a support network for artists who found themselves in difficult situations. There was still work to be done, of course, but progress was being made. Nate cleared his throat, preparing to begin his speech. But as he did, a movement near the entrance caught his eye. Evelyn stood there, looking small and uncertain. Their eyes met briefly across the crowded room. For a moment, Nate felt the old anger and hurt rise up, but then nothing. He realized with some surprise that the sight of her no longer had any power over him. He turned back to the podium, focusing on the bright faces before him. The future of the art world. His future. "Good evening, everyone," he began. "Thank you all for being here tonight. We've come a long way in the past year, but our journey is far from over." As Nate spoke about resilience, integrity, and the power of community, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. He had faced his demons, emerged stronger for it, and now had the chance to help others do the same. The past was behind him. The future, bright and full of possibility, lay ahead. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.